Hey folks, Dr. Drew Sinatra here. Well, I've talked about stress a lot in previous podcasts and other videos that I've done and how stress can impact the body. And there's many different forms of stress out there, one of which being physical stress, and that's when you get into a car accident and there's trauma to your body, or you have an illness, or something happens where there's an abuse and you get hit, whatever it is, there's actual trauma to your body in that situation. That stress affects you differently than perceived stress, and perceived stress is what I want to talk about today. This is stress that might not exist, okay? This is sort of the thought of something could happen, right? That's the stress that's created in our minds here, where our mind is incredibly active and it ruminates over things over and over and over again, and you constantly think about something to the point where it drives you crazy. That is perceived stress, okay? It's not necessarily real physical trauma stress in your body, but it's the mind having an effect on the rest of your body. So I want you to be very mindful of how perceived stress, this is your perception of stress, something that may happen, something that could happen, can influence your body in negative ways, and become aware of what to do when that happens. So when you find yourself ruminating, your mind is so active, it gets going around something that necessarily doesn't even exist, but you're worrying about it, okay, even if it's the news, even if it's watching the news and seeing what's going on in the rest of the world, now you've got this fear pattern that's in your head, and you're worried about what's happening with coronavirus, or there's a bombing here, or there's a disaster here, and so you're taking all that on and you're starting to worry, well, it could happen here too as well. And again, having access 24/7 to news, in my opinion, is not good. I don't think our bodies are designed to handle it that much. I mean, back in the day, it was you'd watch the nightly news at 6 and get your download of information that was happening then. Now it's 24/7 of a Twitter, and it's looking stuff up on the computer and the internet and seeing your TV on all the time and learning about what's happening in the world, which is generally negative information. And that's impacting your psyche. It's impacting the way that you think and you process things. And this whole thing of perceived stress, it gets amplified when you're watching the news and you're bombarded with all this information. So a couple pointers here in terms of what we can do around this perceived stress threat, and that is turn your media off. Just turn it off. Take a break, take a hiatus, socially distance from the media and all the information that's coming at you from all angles, because that information is toxic most of the time. And it could be playing a role with the stress that you're feeling, the stress that your mind is interpreting. And another thing that I'd recommend, number one, is obviously distancing yourself from the information coming in that may not be positive. Number two would be meditation. And I've spoke to this many times. I've created some videos on it. I've been on podcasts talking about meditation. But meditation allows you to adapt to stress in your environment. It's a great way to allow thoughts to come into your head without you becoming attached to them. So for me, I've learned to be more at ease with threats in my environment, whether it is a California fire that may be coming, or whether it's a power outage here in Northern California, or an earthquake threat. All right, these are all perceived threats that I think about. And if I meditate, I find that I'm not worried about these things as much. I'll take them as they come. When they actually are in the moment, I'll figure out how to deal with it. But for me to be thinking about these things all the time, that's creating stress internally in my body, and that's not good. The third thing I'd recommend would be something like an adaptogen. Many different types of adaptogenic herbs out there: ashwagandha, rhodiola, schizandra, eleutherococcus, holy basil. These are all herbs that are used around the world to help adapt people to stress. And I find that when people take these for a long period of time, they all have different properties, of course, but some can affect the brain, some can affect more the body, others have an effect on the brain and the body. And they can really help, like I said, adapt you to stressful situations. That's why they're called adaptogens. So those three things I would recommend that you do to lower your level of perceived stress in your life. And that is cut yourself off from media occasionally, take a break from it. Number two would be to meditate. And number three would be to take an adaptogenic herbal formula or herb. All right, I know that's a little bit of a long video, but I had to talk about perceived stress because it's huge these days. People are really concerned about things that may not even be a risk. And I don't want you to be suffering from that. I see my patients suffer with it, and it's difficult to see, and I've experienced that myself as well. All right, I will talk to you soon.